Hey, what's going on YouTube? And Cedric Brothers back again with another video. In today's video, I'm going to title it Communication for Military Leaders. Again, the title is Communication for Military Leaders. As you can see, I've gone back to my dry erase whiteboard so I could lay out just a little bit of the military structure. And the reason why I decided to make this video, I had told I guess my viewers that may have wanted some military content that I would be going back to that. I still have other content coming out, but communication. And when I'm talking about military leaders, this also applies to leadership on the civilian side also, but communication for military leaders. And I thought about in my career certain challenges that I face and when I was in the military as a leader, and how I had to grow into that leadership position. I mean, obviously leaders are not born, they're actually made. Now obviously there are certain personalities that may have a greater propensity to be more natural leaders than others. But anyway, communication for military leaders. And when I think about it, sometimes some leaders have, or maybe they forget, they are not in touch with their people or the different individuals that are in their organization that they're in charge of. And so I briefly want to touch on, let's go through my board here. I have for the officer side of the house, I have the strategic level, which is where they make the plans and have the vision of the overall organization. So for officers, I have your senior grade, and I decided to use in say 07 to 010, but that's basically your full bird colonels all the way up to your generals. But we'll just stick with this for now. And if you guys need to, any of you guys that may not be familiar with military rank and structure, you can just easily just Google it or go online, and it'll tell you what these particular grades are. But for senior grade officers, it's 07 to 010. For your field grades, that's going to be 04 to 06. Good example, your captains and majors will fall into this particular range for the Army, Marines, and your Air Force. For Navy, I think they might call it, in Coast Guard, they may call it like a lieutenant or something. But let me keep it simple. And then obviously at the bottom for your junior officers, your company grade officers are from 01 to 03. Now on the tactical side, you have your enlisted. And what is the tactical side of the mission? The tactical side of the mission are those that carry out the strategic vision. That means that if the officer side of the house or the leadership has an idea for the vision of the organization, well, it's the enlisted that carry it out. That's your tactical side, hands on and boots on the ground. And so you're enlisted. You have the grades of E7 to E9. Junior NCOs, which are E5 to E6. NCOs are non-commissioned officers. And then you have your junior enlisted, which are the lowest grades from E1 to E4. Now, what is the importance of the individuals or these groups in terms of communication style? Well, the reason why it's crucial is because without communication, they can't get the mission accomplished. And so these two groups, the officer enlisted, they have to work with each other, even though they're on different sides of the house, and obviously the officers do outrank the enlisted. And so your officers, I guess, would be more like your upper level management. That's the best way I could explain it. Your senior grade officer might be the equivalent of, say, a CEO, your VP, stuff like that. So these would be more like your upper level management, where and now with the enlisted, your senior enlisted would kind of fall along with the upper level management, and whereas you have your junior NCOs That's probably more like your mid-level management for the enlisted side of the house, whereas your field grade for the officers would be the mid-level of upper level management. And then you also have your junior enlisted, which I'll just, no offense to anybody that's in these grades or E1, E4, I'll just say more or less, they're more or less like your worker bees. We'll just put it that way. Now, what is the necessity of communication for military leaders? Well, under my umbrella, I have an umbrella for diversity. And each one of these leaders that are on the officer side and the enlisted side has to deal with these unique aspects. The United States military in particular is one of the most, I believe, the most diverse military on the planet. Now, other militaries, foreign countries, etc., I'm quite sure they have, they go through, have a similar structure as well. But I think the United States Armed Forces is, obviously, we're a larger country, and we also do accept foreigners into our military and our armed forces, and that is a way for them to gain their citizenship by serving in the armed forces. So I would say ours is probably the most diverse on the planet. And so when I talk about diversity, under the diversity umbrella, these are some of the things that you have to deal with, and you must be versatile and flexible in your communication style. In the United States Armed Forces or in any military, you have men, you have women, you're gonna have you have people from different different ethnicities, you people from different backgrounds. You have some that are from urban areas, some that are from more rural areas, and then within your background, you also have people that are coming into the armed forces, joining from different class levels, and that's to include different levels of education as well. And so then I have over there, I have perception. Everybody has a different way of seeing things. What is their view on, what is their worldview, or what is their view on what's being communicated? You have perspective falls into that also. How do these individuals that are serving in the military, how do they see things? Then you obviously you have this race in there. You have people that have different spiritual and religious beliefs that are serving in the armed forces. You also have your different age ranges in generations. And definitely your different age ranges in generation is key to effectively, as a leader, being effective in communicating cross-generationally or even cross-culturally. A millennial is not going to have necessarily the same communication style as a Generation Xer or even a baby boomer. They're from two different eras in time. And how they were raised and the era that they grew up in is totally different. And for each generation is definitely going to be different, because each has their own unique style and unique way of communicating. Also, to the far right, I have civilians. Now, civilians also are an important part, that help the military out, as you have a lot of DOD civilians and other civilians that work in different government agencies. And so, as a military leader, from the junior NCOs all the way up to the senior grade officer, you have to consider the diversity and the individual that you're dealing with and communicating to. Personality. Each person is different. So what style or how you may be able to communicate, and one individual may be able to receive it, another individual may not. And for that leader has to learn in some ways by hands-on experience, or some are more instinctual than others. You have to gauge the individual that you're dealing with, because no two individuals are the same, or no group is the same. And when I think about military leaders. I've had experiences when I was in where there are some military leaders that they are out of touch with what's going on outside of their bubble. And the one thing I would recommend to any military leader is to listen to your people, get in touch with what's going on outside of your bubble. And it's very easy to become closed off, especially the higher you go, because you're not in touch with what's going on at the ground level. And the mission can't get accomplished if the vision is not properly communicated. The one thing I would suggest to military leaders is have a hands-on approach, not a micromanager. Do not be a micromanager. Have a hands-on approach. I don't care how many psychology degrees you have or how much education you have. You can't necessarily learn every experience about leadership and diversity from a book. You have to have hands-on, and people are individuals, and people need leaders that have a hands-on approach. That means that even if your personality is not, you're not an extrovert, maybe you're an introvert, but you have to learn these skills. Yeah, you have to learn these skills. A hands-on approach. Be available to people, and there are 3 levels of communication in the military that always take place. One is going to be upward, another is going to be downward, and the other is going to be lateral. Lateral is peer-to-peer, or individuals within your same grade and rank. Upward is going to be to your superiors that are above you, and downward is going to be to subordinates, or those that you outrank. And it is important. You can't necessarily learn people from a book. That's the one thing. I don't care how many classes you take in the military or how many college courses you have taken. You cannot learn people from a book. When this type of leadership is, I call it field work. You won't know until you got to get out in the field, and you have to use the knowledge that you've learned and garnered, and you have to be able to apply it. Applied knowledge through experience. And with all these, within this diversity group, you have certain sensitivities that you have to be careful of. And obviously the military has evolved, and it definitely has changed to move along with the civilian world to some degree. Even though the military is obviously it's more of an autocratic type of system, you still have to be able to communicate and deal with different personalities. As a leader, you're going to wear different hats in the military. And that is what's unique about military leadership versus civilian leadership. As a civilian manager, they basically stick specifically to what their job is, and after that, they go home after that 9 to 5 is done. Whereas in the military, you're on duty 24/7, and you are called to wear different hats. When I was in the military, I was like, geez, it's like you are held responsible if your subordinates mess up in their finances. It reflects on you. If they don't pass their physical fitness test, if they don't do well in their career development course, or if they fail on certain things, their off-duty behavior. So, as a military leader, you have to wear different hats because you carry a greater level of responsibility. And so, as a military leader, I think that you should do a SWOT analysis. What is a SWOT analysis? Well, it's basically an assessment and analysis that is used to assess strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats to any organization or operation, even down to an individual. So, as a leader, you want to assess what are the strengths of my communication style. What are my weaknesses? Do I have opportunities to improve and do better? What are the threats to my communication? Is it maybe certain me unknowingly having certain annoying habits that I can correct that detracts from me communicating to a group or an individual? What are the opportunities that I can do to improve? What I would say for opportunities, I would say learn to listen. You may have the rank, but just because you have the rank doesn't mean that you know everything. And I definitely say this is true for young officers. Officers, please listen to your enlisted, because you may come up with the vision, but sometimes your vision needs some tweaking, and it isn't always correct. And the decision that you make, the higher up you are on the food chain, you affect everybody beneath you. And it may not seem like this stuff is important during peacetime, but go out into the battlefield and you'll really see how this plays out and how important it is. You get out there in the battlefield and in combat, you will find out, how important your communication is as a military leader. Don't expect people to buy in to anything that you're not sold on. So basically, as a leader, when you communicate to people, whether it's whichever way you're going, upward, downward, or laterally, but definitely as a leader, when you talking to your subordinates or others that you outrank or beneath you, don't sell them wolf tickets, because people can look through you, and people have a BS meter, and they can see right through it. And so if you basically just blowing hot smoke and hot air, then they're not going to get on board, with what you're saying. But consider that with all these different grades, there's different levels of communication, because all of these different grades within the military, they work and they operate on a different level, and as a result, there's going to be different perceptions among these groups, and also in how they operate. Then also within these groups, each one is an individual. And because the United States Armed Forces is so diverse, you have to learn to be flexible, and be able to adjust and be ready for change. But I would say one of the key things to becoming more of an effective communicator as a leader, learn the skill of listening. Get in touch with what's going on with your people. Third, I would say give a hoot. Don't just blow your people off and throw them to the waist. I'm not saying hold their hands and all of that and wiping their nose, but maybe on the lowest levels you may have to, if you got really like a young company grade officer that's new, or if you're on the enlisted side and you got some new junior enlisted to the military, you may have to wipe their nose and hold their hands. But generally speaking, you ain't got to go that far. But take an interest in what's going on with your people. Listen to learn and learn to listen. Assess what your strengths are, and as a communicator, and build upon them. If you need to maybe take some more classes, maybe some of you may need more classes in diversity training. But get in touch with what's going on. I don't believe that you can effectively communicate without information. So I think that whatever you intend to convey to your people, make sure you know something about it. Consider yourself on the other foot, because as well as you being a leader, you're also a follower. Consider, how do you receive information? How would you like to be treated? How you like to be talked to? All these things got to be considered. But like I said, on a diversity board, consider, you got to be flexible. People of different beliefs. So you have civilians that are working for you and with you. Can be sensitive to race and people's backgrounds and people's personalities. Understand that communication may differ from generation to generation. Communication to men is different than it is to women. So take all these things into consideration and do your SWOT analysis. Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. That's all I have for this video. This also, like I said, can be used on the outside as well. But the name of this video again is called Communication for Military Leaders. Please like the video, share the video, and you can even unlike it. Leave comments. I'd love to hear. Subscribe to my channel. Thank you guys for watching, and for those that are already subscribed, please tap the bell so you can receive automatic notifications of any videos or future podcasts. Thanks for watching, guys, and again, the name of this video is Communication for Military Leaders. I will catch you guys on the next one. Peace.